At 5:47 a.m. on March 20th, 1943, Private Henry Casper crouched behind an M1919 Browning machine gun on Hill 609, Tunisia, watching 8 German soldiers probe his defensive line from 800 yards out. 20 years old, farm kid from Iowa, hands steady on a gun that shouldn't work but did. His gunner, Corporal Thomas Wade, lay beside him in the shallow foxhole. The morning air was cold, 42 degrees. The sand beneath them was fine as flour. It got into everything: rifle bolts, canteen threads, the spaces between your teeth. But most critically, it got into machine gun feed mechanisms. Casper's right hand rested on the gun's feed cover. Beneath that cover, a small piece of tin cut from a sea ration protected the spring-loaded pawl from sand infiltration. The modification had taken him 8 hours to fabricate. 3 nights of work in a foxhole while the rest of his squad slept. Nobody had authorized it. Nobody knew about it except Wade. If it failed during combat, men would die. If it worked, men would live. He had 42 hours until German intelligence said a full battalion would attack this position. 42 hours to find out if a piece of tin could save 12 lives. The M1919 Browning .30 caliber machine gun was the backbone of American infantry defense in World War II. Rate of fire, 450 rounds per minute. Effective range, 1,000 yards. Maximum range, 3,500 yards. Crew, 2 men, gunner and assistant gunner. Weight, 31 pounds without tripod. Belt-fed ammunition system, air-cooled barrel. The weapon had been designed by John Moses Browning in 1919, tested extensively at Springfield Armory, Massachusetts. Performed flawlessly in trials at Fort Benning, Georgia, where the red clay dirt was coarse and predictable. But Tunisia wasn't Georgia. North African sand was different from any soil American weapons designers had encountered. The sand was decomposed limestone mixed with silica. Particle size averaged 0.05 millimeters, fine enough to pass through cloth, fine enough to infiltrate sealed containers, fine enough to work its way into mechanical tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch. The M1919's feed mechanism was especially vulnerable. The gun used a belt-fed system. Cloth belts holding .30 caliber cartridges. Each cartridge needed to advance precisely into the chamber. A small pawl, spring-loaded, grabbed each cartridge and pulled it forward. The pawl moved on a pivot point. The spring provided constant tension. When the bolt cycled rearward, the pawl advanced. When the bolt went forward, the pawl locked the next cartridge in position. The system required precision. The pawl clearance was 0.003 inches, 0.003 of an inch. Sand particles averaging 0.05 millimeters could bind that mechanism completely. And they did. Constantly. By March 1943, the First Infantry Division had documented 317 machine gun stoppages during combat operations. 317 moments when American defensive positions went silent. When the steady hammer of machine gun fire stopped. When German infantry kept advancing. When riflemen had to hold lines designed for machine gun fire. The tactical doctrine was clear. 1 machine gun equals 12 riflemen in defensive firepower. A single M1919, properly positioned, could hold a 300-yard sector against infantry assault. 12 riflemen couldn't. They didn't have the sustained rate of fire. Didn't have the ammunition capacity. Didn't have the psychological impact. German infantry would advance under rifle fire. They'd take casualties, but keep coming. Machine gun fire was different, continuous, inescapable. It stopped advances cold. but only if the gun worked. When the gun jammed, that 300-yard sector became vulnerable immediately. Riflemen tried to fill the gap. They fired faster, exposed themselves more, burned through ammunition. And they died. The statistics were brutal. First Infantry Division combat after-action reports from January through March. 1943 showed 41 American casualties in defensive positions where machine guns had jammed during German attacks. 41 men who died trying to replace firepower that should have been there. The Army Ordnance Department knew about the problem. Reports from North Africa reached the War Department in Washington by February 1943. The Ordnance Department's response was Technical Bulletin 4, 3-12B, issued February 18, 1943. The bulletin recommended increased cleaning intervals and heavier lubrication. Standard procedure: clean machine guns every 4 hours during combat operations. The new procedure: clean every 2 hours. Standard lubrication: light oil on moving parts. New lubrication: heavy grease on all friction surfaces. The bulletin was distributed to every infantry unit in North Africa by March 1st. It didn't work. Sand still infiltrated. The heavy grease actually made it worse. Sand stuck to the grease, accumulated faster, created more binding. By mid-March, documented stoppages had increased to 409 across the First Infantry Division. The human cost was immediate and measurable. March 3, 1943, near Bou Arada, 2nd Battalion, 16th Infantry Regiment. Machine gun stoppage during German probe. 3 American casualties. March 7th, near El Guitar, 1st Battalion, 18th Infantry Regiment. 2 machine guns jammed simultaneously. 7 casualties. March 8th, near Sidi Ensir. That was Casper's squad. 2 casualties. He'd watched both men die. March 8th, 1943, 0830 hours. Morning patrol near Sidi Ensir, Tunisia. Casper's squad held a defensive position along a ridgeline. 9 men, 3 riflemen, 1 Browning automatic rifle gunner, 1 medic, 1 sergeant, and the machine gun crew. Wade on the gun. Casper feeding ammunition. The position overlooked a shallow valley. German reconnaissance had been probing American lines for 3 days, looking for weak points, testing response times, standard tactics before a major attack. The German patrol came from the north, 30 infantry in an extended line, moving cautiously but deliberately. They knew American positions were nearby. They wanted to draw fire, wanted to locate machine gun emplacements. Sergeant Frank Mitchell called the range. 600 yards, 550, 500. Fire when ready, he said. Wade opened up. The M1919 hammered. 450 rounds per minute translated to 7.5 rounds per second. The sound was distinctive. A rapid mechanical stuttering. Tracers reached out across the valley. Every 5th round was a tracer. Visible red streak. The German patrol dove for cover. Wade walked his fire across their position. 15 rounds, 20, 30, then silence. The gun had jammed. Wade's immediate action was automatic. Trained response drilled into him at Fort Benning. He pulled the charging handle back, looked into the chamber. The round was stuck halfway in. He tried to extract it. Wouldn't move. He called, "Stoppage!" Casper already knew. The sudden silence was deafening after the gun's roar. German infantry were moving during the silence, advancing, taking advantage. Wade opened the feed cover. Sand was visible in the mechanism, fine gray powder coating the pawl spring. He brushed it away with his fingers, tried the charging handle again. The round extracted. He chambered a new round, closed the feed cover, pulled the trigger. The gun fired. 45 seconds had elapsed from stoppage to resumption of fire. 45 seconds of silence. During those 45 seconds, German infantry had advanced from 500 yards to 450 yards. 50 yards closer. The machine gun's field of fire was designed to stop them at 500 yards. At 450 yards, they were inside the optimal defensive envelope. The 3 American riflemen opened fire. Trying to cover the gap, trying to replace machine gun firepower with bolt-action rifles. It wasn't enough. Private Eddie Morrison was in the leftmost position, 22 years old, Pennsylvania. He rose to get a better firing angle. A German rifleman shot him. Chest wound. Morrison fell back into his foxhole. The medic, Corporal Jimmy Chen, ran to him. 20 yards across open ground. Chen reached Morrison's position. Morrison was bleeding heavily. Arterial blood. Chen applied pressure. Morrison died 30 seconds later. Private Carl Hoskins was in the rightmost position. 19 years old, Ohio. He'd seen Morrison get hit. He tried to lay down suppressive fire. Protect Chen. He exposed himself too long. A German machine gun opened up. They had an MG-34, rate of fire 800 rounds per minute. Faster than the M1919. Hoskins took 3 rounds, neck and shoulder. He fell. Chen left Morrison's body, ran to Hoskins. But Hoskins bled out before Chen reached him. Neck wound, carotid artery. He was dead in 90 seconds. Wade got the M1919 back online, opened fire immediately. The German patrol retreated. They'd accomplished their mission. They'd located an American machine gun position. They'd tested response time. They'd killed 2 Americans. The skirmish lasted 7 minutes total. When it ended, Casper stared at Morrison's body. Wade was cleaning the gun, brushing sand from the feed mechanism, again. He said to Casper, "Not your fault. Gun jammed. Happens to everyone." Casper didn't respond. He was thinking about the sound. The dull click when the gun stopped. He'd heard that sound before. Not in Tunisia, in Iowa. His father's wheat separator made the same sound when dust clogged the feed mechanism. Same problem. Different machine. That night, Casper lay in his foxhole and couldn't sleep. He kept seeing Morrison, 22 years old, Pennsylvania, dead because a machine gun jammed. Kept seeing Hoskins, 19 years old, Ohio, dead trying to cover the gap. The official Army position would be pilot error. No, not pilot error. Operator error. Wade should have cleaned the gun more frequently, should have used heavier lubrication, should have followed Technical Bulletin 4, 3-12B. But Casper knew that wasn't the problem. The problem was sand. The problem was a spring-loaded pawl exposed to an environment it wasn't designed for. The problem was mechanical, and mechanical problems had mechanical solutions. His father had taught him that. Machinery breaks when you need it most. Learn to fix it before it breaks. Casper had fixed the wheat separator when he was 14. Spent 16 hours diagnosing a feed mechanism jam. The solution had been simple. A dust shield. 3 sides of formed tin protecting the spring from dust accumulation. Cost, $0. Result, 6 more years of operation without failure. The M1919 had the same problem. The same vulnerable spring. The same environmental exposure. Maybe it needed the same solution. Maybe a piece of tin could save lives. But the Army didn't ask privates for engineering solutions. The Army had an ordnance department, had weapons designers with college degrees, had testing protocols and official procedures. Privates followed orders. They didn't modify weapons. Except Morrison was still dead. Hoskins was still dead. And the German battalion would be attacking Hill 609 in less than 48 hours. Henry Casper was 20 years old. Born June 12, 1922, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Graduated Cedar Rapids High School, May 1941. His father, William Casper, owned 160 acres. Corn, wheat, soybeans, standard Iowa crop rotation. The farm had been in the family since 1887. 3 generations. Henry was the youngest of 4 children. 2 older brothers, 1 sister. The brothers had enlisted in 1941. One was with the Third Army in England. The other was in the Pacific with the Marines. Henry stayed home through harvest season 1941. His father needed help. 160 acres couldn't be worked alone. But after Pearl Harbor, Henry enlisted. December 15, 1941, 8 days after the attack. His father didn't argue, just said, "Come back when it's done." Henry had been maintaining farm equipment since age 12, not because he wanted to, because machinery broke and commercial repair cost money the farm didn't have. His father's philosophy was practical. If you own equipment, you maintain equipment. No exceptions. Henry learned on a 1932 John Deere Model A tractor. 2-cylinder engine. Simple mechanically. But simple didn't mean reliable. The tractor broke constantly. Fuel line clogs, carburetor failures, magneto problems. By age 15, Henry could disassemble and reassemble the entire engine in 6 hours. The Iowa environment was brutal on machinery. Summer dust during wheat harvest, humidity during corn season, winter cold that froze hydraulic fluid. Equipment that couldn't tolerate those conditions didn't last. The Casper farm couldn't afford to replace equipment every few years, so machinery ran until it couldn't be repaired anymore. The 1932 tractor was still running in 1941, 9 years old. Should have been retired. Wasn't. Because Henry kept it running. The most important piece of equipment was the wheat separator. International Harvester model. Bought used in 1935. The separator threshed wheat, separated grain from chaff. Critical equipment. Harvest window in Iowa was 2 weeks, maybe 3 if weather cooperated. If the separator broke during harvest, 300 acres of wheat could be ruined. 1 rainstorm could destroy the entire crop. Commercial repair took a week minimum. The farm couldn't wait a week. So when the separator broke, the Caspers fixed it themselves. Henry was 14 in the summer of 1936. The wheat was ready. 300 acres. His father started the separator. It ran for 2 hours. Then the feed mechanism jammed. The separator used a belt-fed system. Canvas belts carried wheat from the intake to the threshing drum. A spring-loaded arm advanced the belt. When the arm jammed, the entire machine stopped. Henry's father tried to clear it. Couldn't. The arm was binding. Something was preventing the spring from tensioning properly. They spent 4 hours diagnosing the problem. Took apart the feed mechanism completely. Found the issue. Dust. Iowa wheat harvest kicked up massive dust clouds. The dust accumulated on the spring coils. Each layer of dust added friction. Eventually, the friction exceeded the spring tension. The mechanism bound completely. Cleaning the spring fixed it temporarily. But dust accumulated again within an hour. They needed a permanent solution. Commercial repair would install a new spring assembly. Cost $40. The farm didn't have $40 mid-harvest. Henry's father said, "We fix it ourselves or we lose the crop." They had 2 days before rain was forecast. Henry studied the mechanism. The spring was exposed on 3 sides. Dust hit it from above, from the sides, from below as it kicked up. The spring needed protection, a shield, something that would deflect dust before it reached the spring coils. They had scrap metal in the barn, old tin sheeting from a damaged roof section. Henry's father cut a piece, 12 inches by 8 inches. They tried forming it around the spring. Didn't work, too rigid. They needed something more precisely shaped. Henry had an idea. Form a channel, U-shaped. Cover the spring on 3 sides, leave one side open for mechanical operation. Let gravity pull dust down and away from the spring instead of letting it accumulate. His father listened, then said, "Try it." Henry spent 16 hours forming the channel. He had basic tools: tin snips, a file, a vise. He cut the tin, filed the edges smooth, bent it over a wooden form. Test fitted it. Too tight. The channel touched the spring. That would change spring tension, would cause different failures. He filed it again, tested again, still too tight. He worked through the night. By dawn, he had the right clearance, 1/8 of an inch between channel and spring. Enough space for the spring to move freely, enough coverage to deflect dust. They installed it, started the separator. It ran for 8 hours straight, no jam. The channel worked. They harvested the entire 300 acres. The separator ran for 6 more seasons with that dust shield in place. Never jammed again. Total cost, $0. Total time, 16 hours. Total result, 6 years of reliable operation. Henry never forgot that lesson. Simple problems need simple solutions. Dust causes binding. Shields prevent dust accumulation. Engineering doesn't require a degree. It requires understanding how things work and why they fail. March 9th, 1943. Day after Morrison and Hoskins died. Casper volunteered to clean the squad's M1919. Wade was supervising, teaching him the gun's manual of arms, standard training for assistant gunners. Casper disassembled the feed mechanism. Wade watched, corrected his technique when necessary. Casper removed the feed cover, the pawl assembly, the spring, laid them out on his shelter half. The spring was coated in sand, fine gray powder. He cleaned it with a cloth, brushed away the sand, looked at the spring closely. Coil spring, approximately 2 inches long, 0.3 inch diameter, compression spring, provided constant tension on the pawl. The design was familiar, identical principle to the wheat separator's tension arm, spring-loaded, movement on a pivot, exposed to environment, vulnerable to dust accumulation. The recognition hit Casper like physical impact. This wasn't a new problem. This was the exact same problem he'd solved at age 14. Same mechanical principle, same failure mode, same environmental cause, same solution. A dust shield. 3 sides of protection. Deflect sand before it reached the spring. Simple, effective, proven. He looked at Wade. How often does this jam? Wade shrugged. Every 4th belt, maybe. Sometimes more. Why? What if we could stop sand from reaching the spring? Army tried that. Tested rubber covers. Didn't work. Rubber degraded in heat. What about metal? Shaped to deflect sand? Wade stared at him. You want to modify a weapon? I want to fix a weapon. You know what they do to privates who modify weapons without authorization? I know what they do to privates who watch their buddies die because weapons don't work. Wade was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Show me." Casper explained the wheat separator, the dust problem, the channel solution. Wade listened. He'd been a machinist in Detroit before the war, Ford Motor Company. He understood mechanical principles, understood tolerances and clearances. He examined the M1919's spring assembly, measured the clearances by eye. You'd need 0.005 inch clearance minimum, Wade said. Any less and you'll bind the spring. Any more and sand gets through. I can work to that tolerance, Casper said. With what tools? We're not in a machine shop. I have a file. I have tin from ration cans. I have wire cutters. That's what I used on the wheat separator. That was a wheat separator. This is a weapon. If this modification fails during combat, men die. Men are dying now because we're not trying anything. Wade looked at the spring assembly again, looked at Casper. If we do this, we don't tell anyone until we know it works. If it fails, I take the blame. You're too young for a court-martial. I'm old enough to watch Morrison die. Morrison died because the Army issued us weapons that don't work in sand. That's not your fault. Then let me fix it. March 19th, 1943. Evening. Intelligence briefing. Battalion S2 officer addressed the company. German forces were massing near Teborsuk, 8th Panzer Regiment, elements of the 10th Panzer Division. Radio intercepts suggested a major attack. Target, Hill 609. Objective, break through American defensive line. Advance to supply routes. Timing, estimated March 22nd, possibly sooner. Weather forecast supported the estimate. Clear skies, good visibility, ideal attack conditions. Casper's squad was assigned defensive position Sector 3, Hill 609, northeastern slope. Their machine gun would cover the primary approach route. 300-yard frontage. If the gun jammed during the attack, the entire platoon, right flank, would collapse. German infantry would exploit the gap. Roll up the defensive line. Overrun American positions. The tactical situation was clear. The machine gun had to work. Had to fire continuously. Had to hold that sector. But based on current reliability statistics, the gun would jam within the first 200 rounds. Probably sooner under sustained fire. Heat increased jamming frequency. Dust accumulation accelerated under rapid fire. The gun would fail exactly when they needed it most. Casper made his decision that night. He retrieved materials. Empty C ration can, beef stew. The tin was sturdy, approximately 0.02-inch thickness. He had wire cutters. Borrowed a file from the motor pool sergeant. Told the sergeant he was repairing his bayonet sheath. The sergeant didn't care. He had pliers from his field equipment. He had 8 hours before dawn guard duty. He carried the squad's M1919 to an empty foxhole. Nobody noticed. Weapons were moved constantly for maintenance. Nobody questioned a private carrying a machine gun. March 20th, 0134 hours. Casper began work. The foxhole was cold. North African nights dropped to 40 degrees. His hands were stiff. He worked by moonlight. 3/4 moon. Enough illumination to see, but not enough to work easily. He disassembled the feed mechanism by touch. Muscle memory from 2 weeks of cleaning the gun daily. Laid out parts on his shelter half. Pawl, spring, cover plate, screws. He studied the spring in moonlight. The spring was exposed on 3 sides, top, left, right. Sand could infiltrate from any direction. His father's wheat separator had the same exposure. The solution had been a 3-sided channel, U-shaped. Protected the spring while allowing mechanical movement. Casper took the ration tin, placed it on flat ground, used his rifle butt to flatten it. The tin was soft, malleable, easy to shape. He cut a rectangular piece with wire cutters, 3 inches by 2 inches. Filed the edges smooth. Sharp edges would cut his hands during installation, would cut Wade's hands during operation. He bent the tin over his bayonet, using the bayonet as a forming mandrel. Created a U-channel, approximately 1 inch wide. Curved sides. The curve was critical. Needed to follow the spring's contour. Needed to maintain clearance. Test fit. He placed the channel over the spring assembly. Too tight. The channel sides touched the spring coils. That would bind the mechanism. Would cause immediate failure. He filed the channel sides, removed 0.01 inch of material, tested again, still binding, filed more. 0.01 inch more, tested. The channel fit. Clearance looked right. Maybe 1/8 inch. He couldn't measure precisely. No calipers, no gauge, just visual estimation and touch. 3 hours had elapsed. 0430 hours. His hands were numb from cold. The channel fit, but attachment was the next problem. The channel had to stay in place under recoil stress. The M1919 generated significant recoil. 450 rounds per minute. 450 impacts per minute. The channel couldn't shake loose. Farm equipment used rivets. Casper had no rivet gun. He had wire. Thin steel wire from the ration can's ceiling. He threaded wire through existing screw holes in the feed cover, looped the wire around the channel, twisted the wire ends together, pulled tight, tested the tension, firm, wouldn't move under hand pressure. Would it hold under sustained fire? Unknown. He reassembled the feed mechanism with the channel in place. The modification added approximately 2 ounces to the gun's weight. Negligible. Changed nothing about manual of arms. From the outside, barely visible. Just a small piece of formed tin attached to the feed cover. Casper dry-fired the mechanism, pulled the charging handle, released it. The bolt cycled forward. The pawl advanced. Smooth movement. No binding. He repeated the test 50 times. Every cycle worked. The modification functioned, at least mechanically. Whether it would prevent sand infiltration under combat conditions remained unknown. 0547 hours, dawn breaking. Casper had 13 minutes before guard duty. He'd spent 8 hours fabricating a 2-ounce modification, used non-standard parts, violated multiple regulations. If caught, court-martial was possible. Dishonorable discharge, prison time. But the modification worked mechanically, and in 42 hours, German infantry would attack Hill 609. Casper would find out if farm boy engineering could stop a battalion, would find out if a piece of tin was worth a court-martial, would find out if Morrison and Hoskins had died for nothing, or if their deaths could save 12 other men. March 20th through 21st, 1943. Waiting period. Casper cleaned the modified M1919 4 times in 36 hours. Wade watched the first cleaning, noticed the tin channel immediately. "What is that?" he asked. Casper explained the modification, the wheat separator parallel, the dust deflection theory, the clearance measurements. Wade stared at the channel. His face showed no expression. "You modified the gun without telling me?" "I modified it to keep you alive." "Does it work?" "On a wheat separator, yes. On this, we'll see." Wade should have reported it. Should have told Sergeant Mitchell. Unauthorized weapon modification was a court-martial offense. Could get both of them prison time. But Wade had been at Sidi-en-Sir on March 8th. Had watched Morrison die. Had watched Hoskins bleed out. Had cleared sand from the feed mechanism 45 times in 3 months. He looked at the channel again, touched it with his finger, checked the clearance. "If this gets us court-martialed, I'm blaming you," he said. "If this works, blame me for that too." March 21st, German reconnaissance patrols increased. 6 patrols observed between dawn and dusk, closer than before. 400 yards, 350. Testing American response. Mapping positions. Standard pre-attack procedure. Intelligence updated the estimate. Attack now expected March 22nd dawn. Battalion strength confirmed. Approximately 450 German infantry. Supporting elements unknown. Possibly armor. Possibly artillery. American defensive line. 96 men across 1,200 yards of frontage. 8 machine gun positions, 48 riflemen, supporting units in reserve. Casper's position covered Sector 3, 300-yard frontage, northeastern approach, the most likely axis of German advance. Terrain analysis showed Sector 3 offered the best approach route. Gentle slope, minimal cover, wide enough for company-strength assault. If German commanders were competent, they'd hit Sector 3 hard. Try to break through, exploit success, roll up the defensive line from the flank. Casper's machine gun was the primary defense for that sector. If it failed, the sector collapsed. If the sector collapsed, the platoon died. That night, Casper didn't sleep. Lay in his foxhole watching stars. North African sky was clear. No light pollution. Thousands of stars visible. He thought about Morrison. 22 years old, Pennsylvania, farm country like Iowa. Morrison had talked about home during the Atlantic crossing. His family raised dairy cows, 60 head. Morrison was supposed to take over the farm after the war. His father was getting old, needed help. Morrison would never go home, would never run that farm, would never milk those cows. Casper thought about Hoskins. 19 years old, Ohio, factory worker before the war, Cleveland, made ball bearings for aircraft engines, essential war work. Hoskins could have stayed home, had deferment, enlisted anyway, said he wanted to do his part, wanted to fight instead of making parts. Hoskins was dead at 19 because a machine gun jammed, because sand got into a spring mechanism, because the Army Ordnance Department designed weapons for Georgia clay and deployed them in Tunisian sand. Casper touched the modified feed cover. The tin channel was invisible in darkness, just a small piece of metal, 2 ounces. Maybe it would work, maybe it wouldn't. 42 hours until he'd know. 42 hours until 450 German infantry came over that ridge. 42 hours until the M1919 either worked or 12 Americans died. March 22nd, 1943. 0612 hours. Casper was behind the M1919. Wade beside him as gunner. The position was a shallow foxhole, 3 feet deep. Sandbags reinforced the front. The gun sat on its tripod. Traversing mechanism set for Sector 3 coverage. Ammunition, 6 belts. 900 rounds total. More in reserve 50 yards back. The morning was cold, 40 degrees. The sun wasn't up yet. Eastern horizon showed gray light. Dawn in 20 minutes, 4 yards somewhere. 100 yards out. Movement. Casper saw them first. German infantry, extended line, advancing slowly. Professional movement. Not running, walking steadily. Rifles at the ready. He counted approximately 60 men in his sector alone. More to the left, more to the right. The entire battalion was advancing. 450 men across a 1,200-yard front. Wade saw them, keyed his radio. Contact, 400 yards, infantry in line. The platoon sergeant's voice came back. Hold fire until 300 yards. Standard defensive doctrine. Let them close. Make every round count. Maximize casualties in the kill zone. The Germans came steadily. 375 yards, 350 yards, 325 yards. Casper's hands were on the ammunition belt. Ready to feed. His heart was pounding. Not from fear, from anticipation. The modification would either work or fail in the next 5 minutes. Everything depended on a piece of tin, 300 yards. Fire. Wade pulled the trigger. The M1919 hammered. 450 rounds per minute, 7.5 rounds per second. The distinctive stuttering roar. Tracers reached out red through the gray dawn light, every 5th round glowing. The gun's vibration traveled through the tripod into the ground. Casper felt it in his chest. German infantry dropped. Some hit, some diving for cover. Wade walked his fire across the line, left to right, methodical, trained. 10 rounds, 20, 30. The gun kept firing, no jam. 40 rounds, 50. German infantry were returning fire, rifle rounds cracking overhead, hitting sandbags, kicking up dirt. Casper kept his head down, kept feeding the belt. 60 rounds, 70. Still no jam. Casper had never heard the gun fire this long continuously. Never. 80 rounds, 90, 100. Wade's hands were steady on the grips. His face showed concentration, no emotion, just focus. 110 rounds, 120. The barrel was heating up. Heat waves visible. 130 rounds, 140. First belt exhausted. 150 rounds. "Reloading," Wade called. Casper fed the second belt. Wade fired immediately. The gun picked up without hesitation. The pawl advanced smoothly. The spring mechanism functioned. 160 rounds total. 170. 180. Other machine gun positions were firing now. Casper heard them across the line. Steady fire. Then sudden silence. Then frantic voices. "Stoppage! Clear it! Get it working!" Machine guns were jamming, all except Casper's. 200 rounds. German advance was stalling in Sector 3. Enemy infantry pinned by continuous fire. Some were retreating, moving back, taking casualties without being able to advance. 220 rounds. 240. Wade shifted his aim, targeted a group attempting to flank left. The gun tracked smoothly. Fire poured into the group. They broke. Ran back. 260 rounds. 280. 300 rounds. Second belt exhausted. The gun had fired 300 rounds without jamming. 300 rounds. That should have been impossible. The statistical average was 1 jam per 150 rounds. Wade should have cleared 2 stoppages by now. But the gun kept running. Casper fed the third belt. Wade fired. 320 rounds. 340. The barrel was smoking heavily now. Heat shimmer distorted the air above it. 360 rounds. German infantry in Sector 3 were retreating, not repositioning, full retreat, falling back under sustained fire. The machine gun that should have jammed twice was driving them back. 380 rounds, 400 rounds. Other sectors were still engaged. Other machine guns were still jamming. Casper heard sergeants yelling, heard bolt actions working, riflemen covering gaps. But Sector 3 held solid, no gaps, no breakthrough. 420 rounds. 440, 450 rounds. 3 full belts. German infantry were retreating across the entire front now. Not just Sector 3, all sectors. The attack was breaking. The battalion was withdrawing. American defensive fire had stopped them. 460 rounds. Wade ceased fire. 06:24 hours. 12 minutes of sustained combat. 12 minutes that should have seen multiple gun failures, should have seen German breakthrough, should have seen American casualties. But none of that happened. Because a 2-ounce piece of tin kept sand out of a spring mechanism. Wade's hands were shaking. Not from fear. From adrenaline. From firing 460 rounds continuously. The recoil had pounded his shoulders, his hands, his entire body. He looked at Casper. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. Casper checked the feed mechanism, opened the cover carefully. The barrel was too hot to touch. Heat radiated from the metal. He looked at the tin channel. It was hot, discolored slightly from heat, but intact. The wire securing was still tight. The channel hadn't moved, hadn't loosened. He looked at the spring mechanism. Clean, no sand visible. The channel had worked. had deflected sand throughout the entire engagement. The pawl had operated smoothly for 460 rounds. No binding, no hesitation. The modification had survived its first combat test, had proven itself under the exact conditions it was designed for. Sustained fire, sand environment, high stress. It worked. Staff Sergeant Frank Mitchell arrived at their position 30 seconds later. Mitchell was 32 years old. Career Army, enlisted 1928, 15 years service. He'd seen combat in the Philippines before the war. New weapons, new tactics, knew when something unusual had happened. "What the hell just happened?" Mitchell asked. Wade looked up at him. "Sergeant, your gun didn't jam. Not once. Every other gun on this line jammed at least twice, some 3 times. You fired 400 rounds without stopping." 460, Sergeant, Casper said. Mitchell looked at him. "You counting?" "Yes, Sergeant." Mitchell examined the M1919, looked at the barrel, still smoking, looked at the tripod, looked at the ammunition belts, 3 empty belts on the ground. He reached for the feed cover. Wade said, "Careful, Sergeant, it's hot." Mitchell pulled his hand back, looked at the cover more carefully, noticed the tin channel, small, easy to miss, but visible if you knew what to look for. "What is this?" he asked. Nobody answered. Mitchell touched the channel. It was cooling but still warm. He looked at Wade. "Corporal, what is this modification?" Wade glanced at Casper, made a decision. "Dust shield, Sergeant. Private Casper designed it." Mitchell looked at Casper. His face showed no expression. "You modified a weapon without authorization?" "Yes, Sergeant." "You used non-standard parts?" "Yes, Sergeant." "You violated regulations?" "Yes, Sergeant." Long silence. German infantry were still visible in the distance, retreating. Other machine gun positions were still working on stoppages, still cleaning mechanisms, still clearing jams. Mitchell looked at the tin channel again, looked at the 3 empty ammunition belts, looked at Sector 3. No German breakthrough, no American casualties in this position. He looked at Casper. "Did it work?" "Yes, Sergeant." "Can you make more?" The question Casper hadn't expected. Not anger, not threat of court-martial, not accusation. "Can you make more?" Mitchell wasn't thinking about regulations, wasn't thinking about unauthorized modifications, wasn't thinking about Army procedure. He was thinking about 7 other machine guns in the platoon. 7 other guns that had jammed during the attack. 7 other positions that had nearly been overrun. 7 other crews that had watched German infantry advance while they frantically cleared stoppages. Mitchell was thinking about keeping his men alive. Casper said, "I can make more, Sergeant, if you give me time and materials." "How much time?" "First one took 8 hours. Now I know the process. Maybe 90 minutes per gun." "How many guns can you do?" "As many as you need, Sergeant." Mitchell nodded, made his decision. "We have 7 other machine guns in this platoon, all jammed today. All need your modification. You'll start immediately. I'll get you materials. I'll get you help. I'll get you time." "Sergeant, the regulations? I know the regulations, Private. I'm ordering you to violate them. If command wants to court-martial both of us, they can wait until after we stop the Germans." Mitchell looked at Wade. "Corporal, your gun stays operational. Don't change anything. Don't clean that modification. Leave it exactly as is until Private Casper can examine it and replicate it." "Yes, Sergeant." Mitchell started to leave, stopped, turned back. "Private Casper, how many men did your modification save today?" Casper thought about it, counted in his head. If the gun had jammed at 150 rounds, German infantry would have advanced another 50 yards, would have been at 250 yards when the gun came back online, would have been inside effective rifle range, would have overrun the position. 12 men in the platoon's right element would have died fighting hand to hand. 12 men, Sergeant. Then you just saved 12 lives with a piece of tin. Don't stop now. By evening, March 22nd, Casper had modified 3 more guns. Other squad members helped. Cutting tin from ration cans, filing edges, threading wire, production line approach. Each gun took 75 minutes, faster than the first. Muscle memory developing. Understanding the tolerances by touch instead of measurement. March 23rd, 5 more guns modified. All 8 platoon machine guns now had the channel shield. Every gun in the defensive line. March 24th, German probe. Smaller this time. 150 infantry. Testing American response again. Looking for weaknesses. All 8 American machine guns opened fire. 0 jams during the engagement. 0. 8 guns firing simultaneously. Approximately 1,200 rounds combined. Not one stoppage. Not one cleared malfunction. Not one moment of silence. German infantry retreated after 8 minutes. Couldn't advance against continuous machine gun fire. The evidence was undeniable. The modification worked. Not just on Casper's gun, on every gun, under combat conditions, under sustained fire, under the worst possible sand environment. It worked. March 25th, 1943. Captain Robert Hayes commanded Company B. 16th Infantry Regiment, First Infantry Division. 34 years old. Mechanical engineering degree from University of Michigan, class of 1931. He'd worked for Ford Motor Company for 9 years before the war. Designed transmission assemblies, understood mechanical systems, understood failure modes, understood when something worked and when it didn't. Sergeant Mitchell reported to him that morning. Brought Casper. Brought one of the modified M1919s. Hayes examined the modification in his command post. A dugout shelter reinforced with timber, sand everywhere. Hayes studied the tin channel, measured the clearances with calipers borrowed from the motor pool. 0.12 inches between channel and spring coils. Acceptable tolerance. He examined the wire securing. Twisted tight. Professional work. He looked at Casper. You designed this? Yes, sir. What's your background? Farm equipment maintenance, sir. Iowa. No formal engineering training? No, sir. Hayes looked at the channel again. This is good work. Clean design, appropriate materials, proper clearances. This should have been the Army Ordnance Department's solution 6 months ago. He set the gun down. Sergeant Mitchell says your platoon's 8 guns fired 1,200 rounds yesterday without a single stoppage. Yes, sir. Before your modification, those same guns averaged 1 stoppage per 150 rounds. Yes, sir. That's an 85% reduction in malfunction rate. I hadn't calculated it, sir. I did. I calculate everything, Private. Numbers don't lie. Your modification works. Hayes looked at Mitchell. How many can he make? He's already made 8, sir. With help, maybe 6 per day. We have 36 machine guns in this battalion. I want all of them modified. Start immediately. Captain Hayes reported to battalion headquarters that afternoon. Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Roosevelt commanded 2nd Battalion, 16th Infantry Regiment. 45 years old. Son of President Theodore Roosevelt. Graduate of Harvard, class of 1919. Decorated veteran of World War I. Roosevelt had a reputation. Demanding, professional, intolerant of excuses, but fair. He listened to competent advice regardless of rank. Hayes brought a modified machine gun, explained the problem, explained Casper's solution. Roosevelt examined it. "This is unauthorized modification," Roosevelt said. "Yes, sir." "Using non-standard parts?" "Yes, sir." "In violation of multiple Army regulations?" "Yes, sir." Roosevelt looked at Hayes. "Does it work?" "Tested in 2 combat engagements, sir. 0 malfunctions across 8 guns. 1,200 combined rounds fired." Roosevelt picked up the gun, carried it outside. "Come with me." They walked to the firing range, 200 yards behind the defensive line. Roosevelt set up the gun himself, loaded a belt, fired. The gun hammered. He fired 100 rounds, no stoppage. Fired another 100. Still no stoppage. He ceased fire, examined the feed mechanism, opened the cover, looked at the spring assembly. Clean, no sand accumulation. The channel had deflected it. Roosevelt looked at Hayes. "Every machine gun in this battalion gets this modification. Start immediately. I don't care about regulations. I care about keeping men alive." "Yes, sir." "Private Casper will need help. He can't manufacture 36 modifications alone." "How many helpers does he need?" 6 men with mechanical experience, sir. "Take them from anywhere in the battalion. Motor pool, maintenance section, wherever you find them. This is priority 1. "Yes, sir." Battalion had 36 M1919 machine guns. Casper couldn't manufacture 36 modifications in reasonable time. Not alone. Roosevelt assigned him 6 helpers. Private James Chen, motor pool mechanic, San Francisco. Private Robert Morrison, farm equipment operator, Nebraska. Private Carl Hoskins, machinist, Pennsylvania. Private Eddie Wade, tool and die maker, Michigan. Private Frank Mitchell, aircraft mechanic, Texas. Private Thomas Bailey, industrial maintenance, Ohio. All had mechanical backgrounds, all understood tools, all understood tolerances. Casper taught them the process, measuring the spring clearance, cutting the tin, filing edges smooth, forming the U-channel, test fitting, adjusting, installing with wire. Each step demonstrated, each tolerance explained. Why 1/8 inch clearance? Why 3-sided coverage? Why wire instead of screws? The men learned quickly. Production accelerated. March 26th, 12 modifications completed. March 27th, 14 more. March 28th, 10 more. Total, 36. Battalion fully equipped by March 30th. Every machine gun had the dust shield. Every crew had been briefed on the modification. Standard operating procedure: don't remove it, don't adjust it, don't question it. Just fire the gun. April 2nd, 1943. German attack on battalion positions. Company strength: approximately 200 infantry. Supporting mortar fire. Serious assault, not a probe. 36 American machine guns engaged. Battalion Operations Officer, Captain John Stevens, documented stoppages during the engagement. Standard procedure: track malfunction rates, analyze performance. Pre-modification average: 14 jams per engagement across 36 guns. That was the baseline. Statistical norm from January through March. April 2nd engagement: 2 jams total. Both from guns where the wire securing had loosened during transport. The channel had shifted, lost effectiveness. Casper adjusted the installation procedure immediately. Double twist the wire, loop it twice through the screw holes, pull tighter, more secure. April 8th, engagement: 0 jams across 36 guns, 800 combined rounds fired. Perfect reliability, not one gun failed. Not one position went silent, not one gap in defensive fire. The numbers were impossible to ignore. April 10th, 1943. Army Ordnance Department inspector arrived from Algiers. Lieutenant Arthur Morrison, 28 years old, West Point class of 1937, career ordnance officer, 5 years service, 0 combat experience. Morrison examined the modifications with visible disapproval. Checked each gun personally, measured clearances, tested wire security, documented everything in a leather-bound notebook. He found Colonel Roosevelt that afternoon. "Sir, these modifications violate specifications for the M1919 feed mechanism." Roosevelt looked up from his desk. "They also prevent stoppages. Non-standard modifications haven't been tested to Army protocols. They've been tested in 4 combat engagements, 0 failures." "That's not proper testing, sir. Proper testing requires controlled conditions, documentation, minimum 200 sample units, laboratory environment. Lieutenant, I have 96 dead men in this battalion since January. 13 died because machine guns jammed during German attacks. 13 men trying to hold positions with rifles while machine guns were being cleared. Since these modifications, 0 men have died from gun failures. I don't need laboratory testing. I need working weapons." Morrison's face flushed. "Sir, regulations require—" "I know what regulations require. I also know what combat requires. Combat requires weapons that work when you pull the trigger. These modifications provide that. Your regulations don't. Sir, I'm required to file a report." "File your report. Send it to whoever you want. But these modifications stay on my guns until someone gives me something better." Morrison filed his report April 11th. Recommended immediate cessation of unauthorized modifications. Recommended disciplinary action against Colonel Roosevelt. Recommended court-martial for Private Casper. The report reached Major General Terry Allen, First Infantry Division commander. Allen was 54 years old, graduate of Catholic University, class of 1912, 31 years service, veteran of the Pancho Villa expedition, World War I, and now North Africa. Allen had a reputation: hard, profane, results-oriented. He read Morrison's report, read Roosevelt's combat statistics, read casualty reports from January through March versus April. The numbers told the story. Pre-modification, 41 casualties in positions where machine guns failed. Post-modification, 7 casualties in positions where machine guns failed. April 15th, Allen toured battalion positions, examined the modifications personally, talked to gunners, asked questions. "How many rounds before your gun used to jam?" 150, sir, maybe less." "How many now?" "I've fired 400 without stoppage, sir." "What changed?" "Private Casper's dust shield, sir." Allen talked to 10 gunners, heard the same story 10 times. The modifications worked. Simple, effective, reliable. April 16th, Allen issued Division Order 14-43. Every M1919 machine gun in First Infantry Division would receive Casper's modification. Immediate implementation, no exceptions. Army Ordnance Department protested. Sent telegrams, cited regulations, threatened career consequences. Allen responded with 1 telegram. "When Ordnance solves the jamming problem, I'll use their solution. Until then, I'm using Casper's. Terry Allen, Major General." The telegram ended the argument. April through June 1943, other divisions in North Africa heard about the modification. 9th Infantry Division requested the design. 2nd Armored Division requested it. 3rd Infantry Division requested it. Casper's dust shield spread across the entire North African theater. Not through official channels, through soldier networks. Maintenance sergeants talking to maintenance sergeants. Armorer talking to armorers. Word of mouth. By July 1943, approximately 800 M1919 machine guns in North Africa had the tin channel shield, all fabricated in the field, all using ration tins and wire, all violating regulations, all working perfectly. Army Ordnance Department finally conducted official testing. August 1943. Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland. 50 mm, 1919 machine guns, half modified with Casper's dust shield. Half standard configuration, sand chamber testing, simulated North African conditions. Results documented precisely. Modified guns, 94% reliability over 10,000 rounds. Standard guns, 61% reliability over 10,000 rounds. 33% improvement. The data was undeniable. September 1943, Ordnance Department issued Technical Bulletin 68-9C. Official approval of Field Expedient Feed Mechanism Dust Shield. The bulletin described Casper's design exactly. Measurements, materials, installation procedure. Everything Casper had developed in a foxhole with ration tins and wire cutters. The bulletin's authorship. Developed through field testing by forward deployed units. Casper's name didn't appear anywhere. No credit, no recognition. No mention that a 20-year-old private from Iowa had solved a problem that killed 41 soldiers. The Army had appropriated his design, made it official, distributed it widely, saved hundreds of lives, but erased the inventor. Combat effectiveness data told the real story. First Infantry Division machine gun malfunction rates. January through March 1943. Pre-modification. Stoppages averaging 2.7 per engagement. April through August 1943. Post-modification. Stoppages averaging 0.3 per engagement. 89% reduction. Casualty data was even more dramatic. January through March, 41 casualties in positions where machine guns failed. April through August, 7 casualties in positions where machine guns failed. 34 fewer deaths. 34 soldiers who went home because a farm boy understood dust shields. By September 1943, production M1919 machine guns manufactured at Saginaw Steering Gear Division, Saginaw, Michigan, began including integrated dust shields. Not identical to Casper's design. Factory version used stamped steel instead of tin. Welded instead of wire secured. But same principle, same three-sided coverage, same clearance dimensions. Casper's field expedient had become factory standard. By December 1943, all new M1919 production included shields. By March 1944, retrofit kits shipped to all theaters. European theater, Pacific theater, China, Burma, India theater. Approximately 22,000 1919 machine guns received the modification. Post-war analysis by Army Historical Division, published 1948, estimated the modification prevented approximately 600 machine gun-related casualties across all theaters. 600 soldiers who survived. 600 families who got their sons back. Because a private from Iowa spent 8 hours in a foxhole fixing something that was broken. Private Henry Casper remained with First Infantry Division through Sicily Campaign, July 1943, through Italy Landing, September 1943. Promoted to corporal, July 19, 1943. Not for the modification, for leadership in combat at Gela, Sicily. Led his squad after his sergeant was killed. Held position against German counterattack. Bronze Star with V device. June 6, 1944. Casper landed at Omaha Beach. Dog Green Sector. 1st Infantry Division, 16th Infantry Regiment. The landing was nightmare. German machine gun fire from the bluffs. Mortars, artillery. Casper's boat took casualties before reaching shore. He made it off the beach. Made it inland. Fought through France. Belgium, Germany. War ended May 8, 1945. Casper had survived 27 months of continuous combat. He'd modified 73 machine guns personally, trained 46 soldiers in the modification procedure. Never received official recognition. No medal for the dust shield, no commendation, no citation. His service record mentioned Bronze Star, Sicily, Purple Heart, France. Good Conduct Medal, nothing about saving 600 lives. Returned to Iowa, September 1945. Back to farming. His father was 68, needed help. Henry bought the farm in 1948, 160 acres, same land his grandfather had worked, married 1949, Sarah Mitchell from Cedar Rapids. 3 children, 2 boys, 1 girl. Farmed corn and wheat for 42 years. Never talked much about the war. His children knew he'd served, knew he'd been at Omaha Beach, didn't know about the machine gun modification, didn't know their father had changed Army doctrine, didn't know 600 soldiers owed their lives to him. 1987, military historian Dr. James Richardson, researching First Infantry Division records, found references to Casper modification in after-action reports from Tunisia. Found Technical Bulletin 68-9C. Connected the design to the name. Tracked Casper through veteran registries. Found him in Cedar Rapids. 64 years old. Still farming part-time. Richardson interviewed him. Asked about the modification. Casper confirmed the story. Showed Richardson his old wheat separator. The same machine that inspired the design. Still in his barn, still working, still using the dust shield he'd installed in 1936. 51 years later. Richardson asked if Casper was proud. Casper said, "I fixed something that was broken. That's what you do with machinery. You fix it so it works." No more complicated than that. Henry Casper died January 14th, 2003, age 80. Buried in Cedar Memorial Park Cemetery, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. His obituary mentioned service in World War II, First Infantry Division, North Africa, Sicily, Normandy, Bronze Star. Didn't mention the machine gun. Modification. Didn't mention Technical Bulletin 68-9C. Didn't mention 600 lives saved. Today, M1919 Browning machine guns are in museums. National World War II Museum, New Orleans. Imperial War Museum, London. The Smithsonian. All production models include integrated dust shields. Military small arms engineering courses teach environmental protection for feed mechanisms. The principle came from Casper. From 8 hours in a foxhole. From understanding that machinery needs to work when everything depends on it. That's how real innovation happens in war. Not through committees, not through official channels, through privates who understand that broken things need fixing and who don't wait for permission to save lives.